This is Chris Wade with the South Carolina Public Safety Chaplains Association. Today we're getting to know some of our chaplains in our state, and we're with Chaplain Gary Rogers. Hey Gary. So first question, what public safety agency do you work for and how long have you been there?
Well, I am currently the chaplain for the Boiling Springs Fire District, which is in Greenville County. And actually it's kind of a different story. I have been with this department for the past 13 years, but I've only been employed by them for the past 7 months now. I was a volunteer chaplain, volunteer firefighter with this fire district, and just like I said, just about 7 months ago I started as their full-time chaplain and community risk reduction manager.
Okay, and what does that involve with community risk reduction?
Well, a lot of people relate it to what we've always called fire prevention, and it has some of those elements in CRR, community risk reduction, but it takes it to a whole new level. It's we thankfully, at least in our district, we don't fight as many structure fires as we used to, and we're not complaining. That's a good thing. Our overall calling in the fire service is to help people, to preserve life and to preserve property. And one of the best ways that we believe we can do that is by preventing a tragedy before it ever happens. So community risk reduction teaches fire safety, it teaches home safety. We are able to go into schools. We have a lot of groups from schools and daycares that come to our stations, and we do a presentation to them. But also we are partnering with a lot of our homeowners associations. We're doing businesses. We are going next week to do a fire extinguisher training for one of the new businesses in our district. So community risk reduction is kind of self-explanatory in that it's just trying to keep the tragedy from ever happening, rather than just being there while it's going on and helping pick it up the pieces afterwards. But it's just trying to help prevent some of these things. We think that's a good service to offer to the people, to the residents, and to the businesses in our district.
How does this work with being a chaplain?
Wow. Well, I'm busy. That's one way that it works. My fear, because I've got a background in chaplaincy for many years, my fear is that when I took this combination position, that I would be all into a lot of time committed to the chaplaincy end of it, and I will have to really work hard to devote enough time to community risk reduction. Well, what I'm finding is the biggest challenge is to make the time for the chaplaincy, because with community risk reduction there is always something to be done. There's always another appointment to make and always a need there. So biggest challenge to me is just finding the balance to not let one go by the wayside.
What do you like about being with Boiling Springs?
Well, it's a great fire department. It's an ISO 1 department, and everything that Boiling Springs Fire District does, they really try to be the best. And they really call everyone to a high standard, and I like that. I don't think that anything we should do, I don't think we should just do it halfway. And I don't like just having a good start at things. I like to see things. I like to see things be fulfilled. I like to see services be fulfilled. I like to see the things that we offer to help the people that we are there to serve. I like to see it be the very best that we can be, because we represent our fire department. But as a chaplain, my belief is that we answer even to a much higher call than that, to represent God. And so that's my approach in what I do there, is to be the best we can for people. But God tells us that to serve Him, we do that by serving one another. And so that ought to be the very best that we can do. And what I appreciate about Boiling Springs is they do hold us to that standard, and they do challenge us to continue our education. They challenge us to continue training. They challenge us to build those relationships with the people in our community and our district. And so I like the fact that what they do, they really want to do it well.
Sounds like a wonderful place to be.
I think it is. I'm enjoying that.
So tell me a little bit about your faith tradition growing up. What was it like just growing up?
Well, I was blessed in that I grew up in a Christian family. I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and Mama and Daddy, they raised us in church. I come from a Southern Baptist background, And so I'm thankful to have had parents who not only took us to church, but they brought us with them. But it wasn't just church. I was very blessed, and I know that this is unusual too many times, but they lived out their faith in the home.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and they were good examples. They didn't show us one thing at church and then live another thing in the home. They were really good role models of the faith that they claimed. And so I grew up in a very traditional Southern Baptist church background.
Now, I understand you just came from East Gaffney Baptist Church, and you're now with Boiling Springs.
Yes.
What other things are you involved with, ministries-wise?
Wow. Well, even as I have taken this role with the fire department, most of what I do, I'm part of the administrative staff, so a lot of what I do is done Monday through Friday. Of course, unless there's an emergency that I need to show up at over the weekend. Structure fires, we all show up whenever there's a structure fire. But if there's not anything like that, I still have my weekends that are free to do other ministry. And even though I was a pastor, I pastored churches for 32 years. And I was a volunteer in the fire service for many of those years, but now that I'm doing what I'm doing with Bowling Springs Fire District, I still have Sundays to be free to do pulpit supply. And so far, since I've taken this ministry position with Bowling Springs, I've had a lot of churches that have invited me to come and to preach. And so that's one of the greatest joys in my own life and my own ministry. I love to preach. And so it's been good so far. I've had a lot of opportunities to do that. And so the fire service, a lot of that through the week, and then getting to do preaching ministry on the weekends. I'm thoroughly enjoying getting to do that.
It sounds like you get even though you left the church, you're still in the church and you're still living the life.
I am. I was a pastor. I tell people, I make it clear, I did not leave the church. And I didn't get turned off by the church or disgusted with the church and just leave. And I didn't leave the ministry. That's one thing. When you do what I did, there's some people that say, "Oh my, well, why did you leave the ministry?" And I did not leave the ministry. The focus of my ministry in many ways did shift. It did change. But I am still very, very much in the ministry, and I still believe in the church. I love the church. And this way, I'm actually able to be involved in more of the churches. I'm able to go. I'm thankful. I'm an older guy now. I'm an older preacher now, and I'm thankful for this time in my life. I don't resent that, but I'm thankful when I can go and talk with other pastors who are there where I was for many years, and to encourage them, maybe even give them a little bit of help, a little bit of guidance from some of the things I've learned over 30 plus years in pastoral ministry. So yeah, that fuels me, and I'm excited about getting to do that.
What got you into chaplaincy?
Well, I was a pastor before I was a chaplain.
Okay.
I was actually a pastor before I had any involvement in the fire service whatsoever. I was pastoring a church over on the west side of Greenville, in the Parker Fire District, and had several firefighters in the church there where I pastored. And Parker Fire District always had two chaplains, and one of their chaplains resigned. I think he was moving to somewhere else, and so some of those Parker Fire personnel said, "Hey, Pastor Gary, would you consider being one of our chaplains? You're here, you pastor here in our district, and you'd be close to us if we needed you. Would you consider that?" And so, I started out by being intrigued by that, and I prayed about it, and I said, I think I should do that. So I started out as a chaplain, not knowing anything about the fire service. But when I began to go to the fire stations, when I began to be around the fire service personnel, the way I say it is, I got bit by the bug. And wanted to know more and wanted to do more. Ended up going through Emergency Services Academy, being certified as an interior structural firefighter so that I could show up at a call. And I've always responded first as a chaplain, find incident command and say, "Hey, I'm here. What kind of chaplain need do you have?" And that was always my top priority. But if there wasn't a chaplain need after that, I could grab a tool and get involved and help out in some other practical ways too. So that's how I got started all those years ago with Parker Fire District, and have just grown through the years to love it more and more, to the point that I really felt strongly that at this stage in my life I needed to turn my ministry toward focusing on this ministry full time.
Mm-hmm. Now you've got wife and kids.
Yes, Suzanne, I will be married to her 35 years this coming October the 6th.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And we have 2 daughters, Jennifer, and she and her family, they live in Washington State. My son-in-law Adam, her husband, is a surgeon in the Navy. So they are stationed in Bremerton, Washington, which is near Seattle. So they're there with my 2 granddaughters on the other side of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I have Taylor, my youngest daughter, and she and her husband Jacob, they live in the northern part of Greenville County. If you know where North Greenville University is, they live right down the road from North Greenville University near Travelers Rest, South Carolina.
Okay, so imagine they all got into the fire service, and Dad being involved with it. And
yeah, they're intrigued by it all too, and they're used to it all now too, and they are so wonderfully supportive, and I think that's very important. My wife loves what I get to do, and so she's thankful that I get to do this, and especially now that I'm getting to do it on this level, she's just very grateful for this opportunity. So very supportive, and yeah, they always love coming, especially to like the fire rescue conference every June that our state puts on. So. Mm-hmm. Going through and looking at all the cool fire trucks and all the attractions that are there.
And also, besides with Boiling Springs, you're also the chaplain for the Firefighters Association.
I am. I sure am. For, I don't know, the past 8 years or so, I guess maybe. I've been the chaplain for the South Carolina State Firefighters Association. So that's opened up a lot of doors for me get to go and provide the ministry of presence in a lot of different places around the state.
Mm-hmm. So what do you love about being a chaplain?
I just love to be able to help people. I love to be able to offer hope. I love to be able to offer that peace. Not that it comes from me, but I know the one that it comes from, that I can direct them in the right path. I just love to be able to take circumstances, and I think some of the things that I experienced early in my life, you look back on some of the difficult times that you faced. You look back on times maybe of that were greatly challenging, and sometimes you ask God, why am I going through this? Sometimes, though, you get to live as long as I have, and you get to look back and say, you know what, those were difficult times that I went through in my own personal life, but I can see now that, God, you were molding me, you were shaping me, you brought me through some of those things so that I could turn around to somebody someday and say, hey, you know what, here's how God helped me through some of these difficulties, and I am convinced that He can help you through those things too. And I just love to be able, I approached, my whole involvement in the fire service is different than the approach of most people. Most people, when you talk fire service, there is such a competition. There is such a competitive spirit. If you're wanting this promotion or that promotion or this recognition or that recognition, then you're always trying to outdo. They're your friends, they're your brothers or sisters, but you're trying to outdo them because you're wanting to work your way up, and you're wanting that promotion because you know it'll help you, you know it'll help your family, it'll help bring about some of those plans. I don't come at any part of my fire service involvement from a competitive spirit. I'm not there to try to outdo anybody. My approach to the fire service, I want to shine the spotlight on some of our people that I can see they are really doing some good things, really helping a lot of people. And my approach is just different. And some people have a hard time accepting coming at it from my standpoint, because I'm not there really to climb any kind of and I'm not talking about like a ladder that you're going to throw to fight a fire with. I'm talking about any sort of a personal ladder that you're trying to get somewhere. I come at what I do from the approach of Jesus, who said that if if we're going to be great in His eyes, then we've got to have a servant spirit.
Correct.
We have to have a servant heart. And I told one of our personnel the other day at our headquarters, I said, you know what? I am the chaplain to our fire chief and to our chief officers. I am their chaplain, but I am just as much, I am the same chaplain to the probationary firefighter that we just hired.
Yep.
And I will not respect one any more or less than the other, and I'm not there to try to outdo anybody or anything like that. That's not my role.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I understand where some of that comes to play, but that is not my role. And sometimes it's hard for, I think it's hard for some people to wrap their mind around that I'm not there to outdo them. I'm there to help them.
You're a servant.
I am a servant. I am there to help the people on the good days and to try to offer help through some of the difficult days too. Yeah. And that's what I love, when somebody understands that and I can just help somebody through a difficult time. That feeds my soul, if you want to put it that way. I get energized from that.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel the same way when I deal with people and you're able to help them.
Yeah.
You know, just serve them.
Yeah, that's right.
So, what are some of the challenges you see about being a chaplain?
Well, some of the challenges I just talked about.
Yeah.
It's because the approach of a chaplain is so radically different. You know, we talk a lot about leadership, and I've been a part of helping with leadership seminars and leadership conferences and things like that. But the challenge is to realize that true leadership involves a servant spirit and involves a servant heart. And I don't know who to give credit to for the saying, but and Chris, I'm sure I know you've heard it, but you've probably used it too. If serving is beneath you, then leading is beyond you.
Yes.
And so I use that a lot. And every time I talk to chaplains or potential chaplains who are considering chaplain ministry, I use that because you don't use this to try to elevate yourself.
No.
I believe God will put you where He wants you to be. And I'm not saying just sit back and do nothing. We need to continue to make ourselves the very best that we can be. Mm-hmm. But having said that, one of the challenges is that of remaining a servant among all the people. Don't let that get out of hand. Don't look at using somebody at any time to get something that you want. Sometimes chaplains, we hurt ourselves because we're always just trying to get this or trying to get that, and we want this, we want that, when really our whole approach ought to be about giving. Mm-hmm. And of course, I come from a scriptural mindset. I come from a biblical worldview, which teaches us that the more we're willing to give, then the more God's going to give back to us. Correct. And so that's what I mean by, I think God can put us where He wants us to be when we're faithful and we're doing what we're doing for the right reason. Mm-hmm. So that's I think one of the challenges is remaining a servant and keeping that servant spirit and having a humility about us to realize where our place is. And it's a very important place. Mm-hmm. But we need to remember what we're there for and who we're there for.
Mm-hmm. So if you were asked by someone who felt called to get into chaplain ministry, how would you direct them?
Well, I would first say spend some serious time praying. I would say pray and really get to know God. Is this you? Am I just intrigued by this? Because it is an intriguing thing. And you hear somebody like you and me who are excited about chaplain ministry, and it's like, whoa, But spend some time praying, saying, God, is this something you want me to do? Mm-hmm. More than just a vocation, more than just something to fill in some time. Is this something that you want me to do? Because I think we have to know that. I think that's what gets us through some of the difficult times, is to know that we're called to do what we're doing. Yeah. And so I would suggest that. I would also suggest finding a chaplain that you can shadow, be mentored.
Okay.
Maybe even before you publicly make that commitment that you're going to do it, spend some time shadowing somebody who is doing it, mm-hmm. and somebody who has a tried and true, proven chaplain program or ministry, mm-hmm. and say, hey, would you mind if I went with you on some of these things? I would love to observe and just see. I think this may be something that I'm supposed to do in life. So spend some time, because many times it may not be all that we think it's going to be.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's how it is in the fire service.
It is.
I honestly don't think that everybody's called to be a firefighter.
No,
because
definitely
of the
not.
stuff that we see out there.
Yeah.
And I don't think everybody's called to be a fire chaplain.
No. And just because you're a chaplain doesn't mean you're a preacher.
That's right.
Or a pastor. And just because you're a pastor or a preacher doesn't mean you would make a good chaplain. Mm-hmm. There's some similarities, and that we do it for the same one ultimately. But having said that, it doesn't mean that if you're called to do one, that you're going to do the other.
Correct.
Well.
Yeah.
So pray it through, shadow somebody, find somebody that'll be, and even after, when you say, you know what this is, I just really believe this is what I'm supposed to do, find a mentor. Mm-hmm. Find somebody who has experience, who will mentor you. I have never met a fire chaplain. I've never met a law enforcement. Let me just say, I've never met an emergency services chaplain who would refuse somebody who wanted to be mentored, mm-hmm. who wanted to be taught, who wanted to shadow. I've never met one yet who would say, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want you to be around. I just haven't. I haven't found that person yet. I believe that if you're willing to find that right person, link together in a relationship with them, that will be a good way for you to learn.
Okay. So, I know that your heart is to be a servant to all, but you also said that you want to continue to grow.
Yeah.
As a chaplain. So, with that in mind, last question: what desires do you have about being a chaplain, and where do you want to go with your ministry?
Well, I think we should always be students. One thing that will keep your chaplain ministry from ever coming to fruition as it should is that if you develop an attitude that you know it all. Mm-hmm. You can't teach me anything. I know it. I've been doing this for years, so you can't teach me anything. If you develop that attitude, you're probably soon to be done, because we are always to be students. And so I want to challenge myself to keep going to training, to keep finding opportunities to train. I want to read about chaplaincy. I want to I've even gone through Essentials of Fire Chaplaincy about 3 times, I think, just because I learned something new from Essentials, which is the basic foundational intro to fire chaplaincy.
Uh-huh.
That is offered through the Federation of Fire Chaplains. Every time I've gone through it, I've learned more from it. And so never come to the place, and I'm challenging myself with this, starting with me, never come to the place to where I think, I know it. I know what I'm doing. And to where I get complacent, and then I will stagnate, and then I will be of no use to anybody. Mm-hmm. So I want to challenge myself on that, but I want to see chaplaincy continue to flourish. We have gone from a time that when I started years ago, I only knew of one other chaplain in the fire service, and that was the other one at Parker Fire District that I served with there. And so I want to see the networking continue to increase. I want to see those of us who are doing it in our little state of South Carolina here to know each other as best we can. I want to see more, and it's exciting to see. Many times there won't be a month go by before I've heard from somebody else who's called me or emailed me and said, "Hey, I'm talking with so-and-so fire department about being a chaplain, and I'm new at it, and I want to learn." And so I'm seeing it happen somewhat. So my desire, my vision is to be able to go and to continue to see more people coming into fire chaplain ministry, and not only to be fire chaplains, but to be trained fire chaplains.
Yes.
That is so important, that we come at it from a standpoint of being equipped to do. Mm-hmm. And I know we don't learn everything in a training room or a classroom, but we've got to start there. And then, if you're in the fire service and you're on scene, training kicks in. Sometimes we don't even remember some of the things we do in the fire service because training kicks in and we're just doing it. And
that muscle memory.
Yeah, exactly. And that can, that can happen out there in chaplains. But we've got to start with the training, and we've got to put it to work out there in the field, on the scenes, at the incidents that we go through, that we go to. But I just want to see it continue to come to fulfillment, and I don't know what that'll be. I would love to be able to come to the end of my way one day and to see it just continuing to build and continuing to grow and continuing to flourish.
Well, we've got a good start with the Public Safety Chaplains Association.
Yes.
Right now, I think we're over 100. I think it's over 120 chaplains.
Fantastic.
That are between police and fire, public safety chaplains in the state. But we know there's a lot more chaplains out there that are needing to connect and the opportunity for training, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, there's 120. That's about 119 more than I knew when I got into it. So it's exciting to see that we know where they are and who they are, and we can get to know them as best we can, and even through this association, be able to even train together.
Yeah, it's God's doing something, and I'm very glad to be part of that.
Absolutely.
So, Gary, it was great talking with you, and
Thank you,
great
Chris.
to get to know you.
Good talking with you today. Thank you.
Okay.